Welcome to an episode of Driving the Alphabet, where I have AI give me a noun for a letter of the alphabet and I filibuster as we drive. It has been a while, but today I'm doing K, and AI gave me knowledge, which is kind of a bummer that it didn't give me something with a traditional K sound, but technically knowledge does start with K. And that's a very broad thing to filibuster on, because I could just filibuster on anything I have knowledge of, or I could talk about knowledge itself. So I think I'll talk about knowledge itself first, but that will be very short-lived, and then I will filibuster on other things that I have knowledge on. So knowledge is obviously knowing things, like it's facts or statistics or things, data that you have, that you know. Like if someone has a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of data in their brain on something, and whether that's statistical data or anecdotal data or just understanding how something works that isn't even stats, because I mean, you could say your blood needs oxygen and that's knowledge, but you don't have stats to back that up, because you don't really need stats to know that you're okay. People are crazy drivers right now. To know that your blood needs oxygen. How about you turn into the aisle you say you're gonna turn into? You are in not this right lane. Okay. Anyways, I apparently will also filibuster about how bad the drivers are in this area. So on that note, K is for knowledge, and I think knowledge is an important thing to have. And people will argue that wisdom is more important than knowledge, and I think in a lot of cases that is true, but I would argue that not in all cases, because if you're wise, then you can use knowledge in good ways. But if you're wise but have nothing to base decisions off of, no knowledge, then it doesn't matter that you can be wise with your knowledge if you don't have it. So yeah, kind of a weird thought process there, but knowledge, I think, is really important, and in order for you to have knowledge, there has to be a truth. So I disagree with the your truth, my truth. I think you can believe you're telling the truth, but I believe that there is one truth out there. There is not different versions of truth. There's different emotions and different parts of things you can see, but true knowledge is going to be from what is actually true. And what we think is true changes regularly, which is really interesting. What we think is true can be different from one day to the next, 1 year to the next. I am a conspiracy theorist, and so what I believe is true is often very different than even a lot of my family members believe is true. But regardless of what is true, there is only one truth. I can't be right about thinking that 9/11 is an inside job, and my mom can't be right about thinking that it was just these terrorists with no inside knowledge, and we can't both be right, because truth can't contradict itself. So knowledge that contradicts itself means that there's false knowledge somewhere, and there can be pieces of truth found in what more than one person thinks is knowledge. So if I use the same example, there could have been very much terrorists, which this is what I believe. There's terrorists, but there were people with insider knowledge that didn't do anything to stop it and quite possibly benefited from it. So my mom can be right that there is that there were terrorists, and I can be right that there was inside job involvement, but I can't be right that it was only an inside job, with my mom being right that it was only foreign terrorist involvement. So if there are things that contradict each other, that you think you know and someone else thinks they know, only one person of the two actually has real knowledge, or none. But real knowledge cannot contradict itself. And I'm actually filibustering on knowledge itself for a lot longer than I thought I would. So there's that. But I think knowledge is really important. And if knowledge can't contradict itself, how can we get to real knowledge and know what is true? Well, that's where you have things like the scientific method, but things that you think have been proven with the scientific method can once again be proven untrue. And the only consistency I have had in my entire life of never questioning, yes, but I've never had times in my life where something has led me to the conclusion that I'm going to bear my testimony now that Christ is not real. So anything that I go down, any rabbit holes, any scientific method, even though people will tell you that science disproves religion, it doesn't. Everything has led me back to there being a savior. And I know people will disagree with me on that. And that is okay. But that is where I have knowledge. Real knowledge is with a savior, which is in a literal sense, it seems impossible, because you would think the one thing that you can't actually prove. I can't prove to anybody that there's Jesus. But anything that has been so-called proven to me in this life, I've been able to find reasons to believe or not believe. But that has always stayed steady. I've questioned. I've gone, is there really? But I have never found anything that disproves Jesus, and I have found things that disprove everything else, and that has stayed as steady in my life, and it has made it so that in hard times I have someone to rely on, and I guarantee you that my Savior has been there for me. Even if from an outside standpoint it doesn't look like it, times where life has been really rough, and looking in you'd think, well, she looks like she could use help that she's not getting. My Savior has been there for me. So my knowledge in this world is that there is a Savior. And if you get down to the nitty-gritties of religion, I don't have much knowledge. I have beliefs, but not much knowledge. But everything has led me to knowing that there is a Savior, and I am grateful for that. And I think that's the most important knowledge someone can have in this life. You can have all sorts of knowledge, and some of it's real knowledge, some of it will be disproven over time, and you'll go, well, I thought that was knowledge, but it wasn't really. The most important knowledge I've ever had is that there's a Savior. And people would think that maybe the burden of proof is on me for that. And if you think that the burden of proof is on me for that, then I'm sorry, I can't prove it to you. But I think that there's no need for a burden of proof when over and over it's been the only steady thing in my life. not the only steady thing in my life, but the only completely steady thing in my life. So that's my filibustering on knowledge.